The Ordinary Discussion Podcast.
If we claim to be without sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to start there because there's not a person listening that does not have sin failure in their lives. In the past, in the present, and in the future. There's not a person listening. And so it's easy to hear something like this and say, oh, well, I've never murdered anybody. I was never a drug addict. I never, I don't know. I don't even want to say the sins because I don't want to put somebody in a spiral. But think of whatever sin you think is a bad sin. Well, that's not me. So this doesn't even apply to me. But I think it does because none of us are without sin. And even people, and I may be getting ahead of myself, and I'm sorry, Emily, but even people that have been in their faith like nearly their entire lives, that have lived a really good life, still have failures that keeps them from moving forward. It could be as simple as anger towards your wife. It could be as simple as gossip with other women. It could be as simple as greed. But there's these things that nobody else sees that you define yourself. You allow it to start defining who you are. And then Satan comes in and then he's obviously the king of all liars. And he'll tell you, well, God can't use you because of that. You can't disciple a guy because you just yelled at your wife and kids. Like, who are you? And then it's funny because somebody that is dealing with some other sin area that we call a major sin area, like whatever, who even classifies that, but would look at us and say, oh, you're not doing that because you yelled at your wife? Like, give me a break, But we believe these lies that Satan puts in our hearts, and So
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that God chose these people, first of all, but then put them in the Bible so that we could see the people that he chose to do his work all had these sketchy pasts and these, things that they did that, they weren't proud of. And now, it's here for us to read forever. Some of them I feel like embarrassed for them, but I can remember when I was younger reading, even in Hebrews 11 and reading in the Hall of Faith and reading about people that made it into the Hall of Faith, but reading about them in the Old Testament, their failures and the things that they did that were wrong. Like I think about Abraham and, he's like a man of faith. He is in the Hall of Faith and it talks about his amazing faith. And I'm like, yeah, but he didn't trust God enough to give him children. He didn't wait for that to come along. He tried to make that happen himself with his maidservant, but he still made it into that chapter. And it always bothered me. But I think as I've gotten older and I've matured in my faith, I'm like, no, that's what God does. He takes our failures and he forgives us and he helps mold us and make us into these people that can be used for his glory, even with all of our brokenness. So I love that we get to witness it and see it firsthand, that nobody's perfect. Nobody.
Yeah, it wasn't one, I'm trying to find it. We have to cut this.
Edit.
Wasn't one of the people a prostitute? Wasn't it the
Rahab?
Yeah, because she hid the spies.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, wait,
she went from being a prostitute to part of Jesus' lineage.
We should probably add that to the Ordinary Women study, maybe.
She's already in there.
Oh, my bad. I don't lead Ordinary Women. Hey, I don't lead Ordinary Women studies. Imagine that. Probably a very smart thing that I do not lead those studies. Sorry for that. That's why you're directing that side of the organization.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. We do need to cut that.
But good thought, Jeremy. Good thought.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, I'm glad I could help. Yeah, speaking of failures, we can't cut it. We can't cut it because we gotta just own it. Yeah, I agree with you. All of the Old Testament is kind of. I know this sounds terrible. It's really encouraging to me. Like when I first got into the Word of God, some of the first stuff I read was 1st and 2nd Samuel. And man, it's like I would read the life of Saul and David and think to myself, wait a minute, I still got a chance. And right? I think that's why God allowed all that to be in there. Well, first off, who could he have chosen that that didn't have failure. And that's the crazy part about it, is that there's no one he could have chosen without failure. And really, isn't that what ordinary men and ordinary women is all about?
Yes.
Isn't that it? It's like, stop thinking you have to be perfect. Stop thinking that you have to get it all together before you can walk out what God's called you to do, because the Word of God, it doesn't show us that. I mean, he didn't say to the 12 disciples, hey guys, drop your nets, get your crap together, make sure you understand all this, and this, and then come follow me. It's just not what he did, and it wasn't very long after that they started following him that he sent them out in pairs to start evangelizing the gospel. And so I don't know if it was the gospel at that time. That was before Jesus died, but either way, telling the good news. So it's interesting how we allow Satan to lie to us and make us think so wrong about this thing of perfection.